Unthinkable. Real Answers for Families Confronting Catastrophic Injury or Death. Written and narrated by J. Kyle Bachus, Esquire. Mom, more than 30 years ago, you enthusiastically encouraged my dreams of becoming a lawyer. What we didn't know was that my most meaningful case would involve your wrongful death. We all miss you so much. Introduction. The call no one wants to get. It was 8 p.m. Denver time on Wednesday, April 28, 2020. Our COVID-19 lives were just beginning. I had finished a workout in the basement and was sitting in the kitchen eating a barbecue sandwich when my phone rang. My sister in Florida, calling at 10 o'clock her time. That didn't happen very often. I answered. Kyle? Hey. She wasn't crying, but I could tell something was wrong. The Winter Park police just left my house, she said. My sister lived in a suburb of Orlando, not in Winter Park, which is about 30 miles away, but our mother lived in Winter Park. Is it Mom? I asked. We're a close family. Before COVID-19, my mother watched my sister's kids in the afternoons. My mother and I had spoken just the day before, preparing to put her house on the market. Yes, my sister said. Something happened to her? It wasn't a question. I already knew the answer. Yes. Is she dead? I knew the answer to that too. My sister hadn't begun by saying she was on the way to the hospital. She hadn't started with, there's been an accident, but Mom's okay. Yes. My sister told me the officer had knocked on her door, asked if Margaret Bachus was her mother, and told her our mom had been hit and killed by a car while she was out on her walk that evening. Daily walks were my mother's way of staying active during COVID-19. The officer handed my sister a card with her direct dial number, offered her condolences, and asked if my sister was okay. And then, with that, the officer left. You might think I'd have been prepared for a call like that. I graduated from the University of Florida Law School in 1992 and started work for a personal injury law firm the next Monday. My childhood love for reading had led me to the law, and my affinity for the underdog led me to the David versus Goliath world of personal injury law, first in Florida and then in Colorado. I co-founded a firm in Denver in 1996 that had expanded to 30 lawyers and about 100 staff in 4 offices. At the time of my mother's death, I had 28 years of experience in the field. In that time, I had handled hundreds of cases involving catastrophic injuries and worked with more than 100 families who had suffered the loss of a close family member. I've had as many as a dozen cases involving other families in situations similar to ours at the same time. But there is no preparing for such a call. There's no way to be ready for that knock on the door. In an instant, everything is different and will be from that moment on. It's impossible to grasp the impact of an event like this unless you've experienced it yourself. The only way I can describe my mindset in the moments after I learned of my mother's death is shock. My older brother and younger sister are both doctors, and they're also familiar with death and tragedy through their work. We were all left reeling. For all of us, nothing would be the same again. I walked upstairs to tell my wife and could hear the kids in their rooms nearby. My sister just called, I began. My mom was killed tonight out on her walk. She was hit and killed by a car. My wife burst into tears. What? Are you sure? She asked. The kids came at the sound of their mother crying. At the time, my daughter was 15 and our sons were 12 and 10. Everyone in the family called my mother Big Sissy because she was an older sister herself, and that's just the kind of person she was. Big Sissy is dead, I told my kids. And with that, their lives changed forever too. Moving beyond shock. You may be reading this book because someone you love has been killed or catastrophically injured too. You've gotten the call or the knock on the door, and you're reeling just like my family. We all walk through our days aware that terrible things can happen to other people, but we don't expect them to happen to us. It's a defense mechanism. Without it, we'd be paralyzed, unable to move through life, spending our days locked up at home for safety. But terrible things can't
Sample complete. Ready to continue?